Hello
Oh, welcome.
to our coffee tour.
Right. Welcome.
Oh, yeah,
Skill.
let's cheers. Go.
Oh yeah. Ding.
Super lame. Everyone's welcome,
We hope you enjoy our punniness as much
right?
as we enjoy our own punniness.
Ah,
Welcome to episode 9,
yes,
involving divine. I'm
divine.
so excited.
I'm super excited for this episode too. Yeah.
Cool. So, what we're going to be talking about today, when starting to think about this episode, one of the first places my mind went to are what are the ways that you connect with, and when I say divine, what I mean by divine is like deity or any type of spirit, because I understand not everybody necessarily works with a deity, but I think as witches we all connect to some sort of spirit or something outside of ourselves, in order to do honestly many different types of work.
Yeah.
So in thinking about that, I thought about what are the different ways that we connect to those things.
Mhm.
My mind automatically went towards spirit possession,
Yeah.
but I feel
That's
like,
the natural thing that you like think about,
yeah,
like
yeah,
stuff like this.
when like digging in deeper to research and to things in my personal practice,
Mhm.
when it came down to it, what kept cropping up in my mind was, okay, what is spirit possession?
Yeah.
There are so many different aspects to ways that we open ourselves up to work with different divine spirits, deity, whatever it is to you. Um, that sometimes it is inviting something into our space. Sometimes it is inviting something into ourself. So there's so many different layers upon layers upon layers to this idea of connecting with something outside of oneself or even within oneself. Yeah.
Eh?
What's your thoughts on that?
So this is a really interesting episode for me, kind of like in the Hex versus Honey episode. For me, I've done hexes in the past. I've obviously done a ton of honey jars. Hexing wasn't something that you were super familiar with in your own practice. This discussion is something that I want to implement in my practice, but it's not something I've had experience with before, like in the forms that we're going to talk about. So I'm super excited to like get into it because I know that you've done a lot of research on this, and I'm hoping you can teach me some things.
And I think a lot of the things that we're going to discuss, you may be surprised to like take a second look at and be like, oh, I kind of knew those things sometimes, you know?
And I think we should say too, before we like jump into it, this is something that was partly inspired by a comment that we received on one of our videos, from New World Witchery. This is something that they had kind of, Corey and Lane had kind of mentioned, asking our experience with.
So, what we're going to do here, we are going to break down different layers of the onion, if you will. I know for me personally, trance work and doing that sort of connective work is a huge
yeah, that's a huge part of your
thing
practice.
for me. Yes. And it's where I've seen, honestly, a lot of the most growth in my practice. But you don't have to be somebody that spends a lot of time doing trance work for these things to be relevant to you. Okay. So when it comes to kind of the buildup of this, first thing that the mind automatically goes to is invoking. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
So invoking is a term that we hear a lot in a lot of different types of spellcraft. It is a very spellcrafty type thing.
It is.
With invoking is essentially inviting deity, spirit, divine into one space. Okay. So even a lot of like traditional witchcraft of casting the circle, calling upon whoever your matron goddess is, whoever you work with, it is the please come join me in this work and work with me, essentially. Okay. So invoking is very much inviting. It
Yes.
is not calling something out. It is
Inviting.
inviting something to come work with you.
Right. Sending them an engraved invitation.
Yes.
Your presence has been requested. Right?
RSVP, please.
RSVP, yes or no. Invoking is something that I've done a good bit of in my practice working with the Morgan. So that is something that I'm familiar with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's something that we do commonly, you know? I mean, for me personally, I know that mama's busy. I don't call upon mama unless it's something that like I need some backup, you know?
Right.
Yeah. But when there is something that either I feel like my power and my energy feels low, or it's something that I know that I have my own things that I need to take care of myself because I am a grown woman and I know that mama expects me to take care of certain things myself.
100%.
But there are times
you wouldn't have been called by who you were called by. Same thing for me. You know, both of our deities that we work with are super strong female energy. So they're not going to be carrying you around.
No.
And they're going to make you do the work yourself. But there are times when we do want their presence.
And they show up. They show up hard. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I like to think about invoking is again an invitation. It's I need some help. Please come be in this space with me. Okay. Join me in the space together, not in my body. Okay. Right. When we start talking about inviting or invoking deity spirit into oneself, then we start getting into the facet of aspecting. Mm-hmm. Okay. Aspecting is more so invoking or inviting. I feel like those two could be used.
Yeah, I would consider those very similar.
Yeah. Inviting them into your own body. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is essentially a mild form of spirit possession, a mild form of voluntary possession, if you will. But it is not like you are still yourself. You are still in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. You are who you are. You think how you think. I like to think of aspecting as a veil through which you're perceiving the world around you through said spirit or deity's eyes, you know? Yeah. So you're still, I don't like to use the word in control, but you're still very present.
Right. I'm trying to think of another way to say that other than like in control.
Yeah.
Still present within your body, still able to make those
aware
within your body. You still have power in that situation. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're just inviting them to be able to perceive things through their perceptions, if you will. To me, it's wearing a veil. It's wearing a veil of them, you know?
Yeah. And I've never implemented or attempted to do anything like that in my practice. And when we first started talking about this, I became super interested in trying to implement this in some way, shape, or form. So I'm really excited to talk about it.
What I will say with aspecting is just like anything, if you haven't caught on by now, words are very important to me. Like your intention and the way that you put out what your intentions are and being clear and being definite and sure about what your intentions are is, to me, it's very important.
Yeah.
When doing this kind of work, especially because even working with, okay, pause, rewind. When you are aspecting, you are inviting somebody into yourself. That is not to be used loosely or in scenarios where, like, you want to have a relationship with who you're inviting. You don't invite just anybody into your home, and
No.
yourself is your home, you know? So to say, okay, I'm wanting to do this sort of work, this goddess that I've never even spoken to before or worked with before is correlated to that. Let me just call upon them. You need to know about who that person is. You know, who is that deity? Who is that spirit? Because it may not even be deity. It may be an animal spirit. It may be fae. It may be anything. But you need to make sure that you have an understanding of what is their deal. What type of work are they interested in doing, and are you willing to join in on that work, you know?
Yeah.
And then to follow up to that, when you are inviting said deity slash spirit into your home yourself, I think that it's important to enter into that with intention and with clarity about what you are seeking, what type of work you're seeking to do. And the reason why I'm standing on such a soapbox saying this is because I have been in positions before working with my matron goddess that I was not clear about what level and what degree of the work I was able to do at that point. And I was pushed to places that I didn't feel in danger, but I was like, I was not anticipating this, you know? This is not
I wasn't ready.
what I had prepared myself for, you know? And the work was what I needed. It was something that really broke me and shook me out of a position that I had been stuck in for a very, very long time, for many, many years. But I was unprepared and I was honestly ignorant moving into it, you know? So in doing this work now, I think a lot more about that experience. I'm thankful for said experience, but I also have learned to be a lot more clear about what I am willing to do and where I'm willing to go mentally,
Yeah.
you know?
I agree. I agree because you never know what's going to happen. You know, you
Yeah.
never know what you're going to be pushed to. It's very similar to like what we had talked about in our Hex versus Honey episode, and probably in episodes previous to that. Sitting down and being very clear about what you want, what is your desired outcome, and crafting your words and your intentions around that desired outcome. Because if you're not extremely specific, you do not know what you're going to be pushed to, and you may not be ready for what you're going to be pushed to.
Yeah.
So really considering that and thinking about that before you start invoking or aspecting or anything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like a lot of what aspecting, a lot of the attention, at least my intention entering into it, is for inner transformation. You know, it's for seeing things again from a different perspective and being able to kind of go outside of one's own natural processes and patterns that we've created for ourselves. And to venture into that scope of things is already a pretty scary place to be, you know? So again, if you're not clear about what I'm willing to do and to not do, then you can't not expect deity to be like, all right, level up, you know? So, because that is at least what I think what any sort of guiding spirit wants for us, is they want to push us to the next thing, you know? Not saying that they, whatever dear spirit is, like doesn't give a shit about what your process is and what your path is, or doesn't give a shit about your safety. I think that it's more so, if you're saying that you're ready, then I'm going to push you. Yeah.
You want more power, for example, if you're in a position where you're like, you know what, I feel like I've lost a lot of my power, I feel like I want to get more power back, I want to feel more powerful. What does that tell you? That you're probably going to have to level up.
Mm-hmm.
So that means you're going to have to go through some shit in order to get that power that you so desperately want. So taking that in consideration whenever you're putting together what you want to do and what your desired outcome is. What are you going to have to go through to get to that next step? Is it going to be painful? Probably.
Right.
Things that you probably aren't ready to face? Yes. And are you ready for that? And if you are, then mazel tov, you know, skull.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
So one more thing with aspecting, I feel like this is traditionally done with a method of raising and then releasing. This isn't necessarily something that like you're holding on to or maintaining that connection for an extended period of time. This is I am doing trance work right now, or I am doing some sort of divination or meditation or something that I want to go through this inner transformation, and then I am closing this out. Okay? That point is important for later. Dun dun dun.
Take note.
Raising and releasing. Releasing.
Release.
So next is evoking. Okay. Evoking, I am going to be very transparent, makes me big nervous.
Big nervous.
Big nervous. Maybe it's just because I don't know. Evoking is calling something out. Okay. And normally this isn't like spellcraft. This is more like ritual, ceremonial type of magic. Okay. So this is, I am casting my circle and I say, so and so, get down here. I am calling you out. This is that kind of thing. I don't know why I went so intense with get down here.
That's probably why you're
That's assuming that they're above too. So
get up here.
Get over here. No, but it is that sort of like, I am calling you out. I'm calling you to be here right now, which I think that it makes me uncomfortable because I don't feel like I'm in any position to call upon anything. I don't even want somebody, I wouldn't even do that to another human being. Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to, if I need to have a conversation with somebody, I'm not like, Tori, get your ass over here. It's rude. To me, that's rude. Am I? Do I do that?
I'm thinking.
If I've done that, I'm sorry.
No, but I think you have, but I definitely do it to you sometimes too.
Well, I would not do it to deity or spirit. I'm sorry.
No, I was just thinking earlier, I like fucking messaged you and I was like, let's do this. Come on.
Oh, and I said, I need you to give me a minute.
I big bossy.
It's okay. We can be bossy sometimes. But again, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I'm not comfortable doing that.
No, I agree. That's not something that I would be comfortable with either. But like we've already said before, everybody's practice is different. So what I may be comfortable with, Alyssa may not be comfortable with, and vice versa. Doesn't mean it's wrong. Just means that that's not something that I would want to introduce into my practice because that's not the type of witch that I am.
I am not comfortable evoking, but there have been times in early baby witch Alyssa that I think I may have, not from my intention, but done this. So another point that I want to hit on that I was actually going to save till later, but I think really makes sense for here is when you are crafting a spell, or when you are using a spell that you have invocations or something that you're reading aloud, what is your terminology? If you are saying, I call upon you.
Right.
Is that not evoking?
Yes.
So I've thought about this before, but it really hit home when I started thinking about that and in doing petition magic. So what are the words that you are using when you are petitioning for help?
Are you inviting? I invite you into my space?
Or are you saying, I'm calling on you?
You're right. You're right. I probably did the same shit in my baby witch days because now when I invoke, I never say I call upon you. I say I invite you.
Or I petition you.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
asking you. Yeah.
Hmm.
So, I mean, evoking, when reading the definition of what evoking means, if you will, to me, I'm like, mm-mm. But then when I really like sat with it, I was like, but have you not done that in
Ooh.
some form?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think that it's important for us to think about our words when we're petitioning or asking deity/spirit.
Yeah.
Wow.
How are you invoking? And are you invoking using the right words? Or are you now evoking because of the words you're using?
Mhm.
Interesting.
I would like to know from, like, if anybody uses evoking in their practice,
Mhm.
and I want to know more about it, because I don't think that it's necessarily inherently intended to be a bad thing, but to me it just feels not,
It
it feels
feels
strange.
like- Yeah, and I don't even say it feels like, I just feel like it's just something that I'm not drawn to doing, but I would be interested in hearing others' experiences with it and how it's worked for them and like what it adds to their practice. So
Yeah.
I would be very interested in hearing from people
Yeah.
down the
Because
road.
I may be completely in the mindset that it's this like thing, but for somebody else, they may not have that experience. So please tell us if you use this in your practice and if you have a different perspective, because I don't know, it just, I don't know why it makes me feel uncomfortable, but it does.
No, I mean, I agree. It makes me feel uncomfortable too. So you're not alone. You are not
All
alone.
right, so ready to move on?
Lego.
Drawing down.
Ooh.
Ooh. So drawing down is essentially invoking or inviting, almost an aspect type situation. Difference being is that you are not disconnecting said tether. You are holding on to that link as long as you can. So I know I've done drawing down the moons before. It was
Yeah.
one of the first spells the first things I ever did in my practice.
Right.
And I've had very powerful experiences.
Yeah.
It's not something that I've done in a long time. But in my earlier days of practice, I remember that being one of my first, like, like I felt charged. Yeah.
We actually did the first thing that we ever did together was drawing down the blood moon
Yeah.
years and years ago
In the pouring rain.
in the pouring rain.
Beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was a beautiful experience.
Yeah. In the mountains. Gosh, it was just,
Yeah.
yeah. But it's, yes, invoking, inviting deity or spirit into your own body, similar to aspecting, but it remains open for as long as you can maintain said connection,
Yeah.
which I think kind of brings us into another sidebar conversation of raising versus releasing. Okay. So when do you feel like it is, I guess, appropriate or called for to raise and release? Or when do you feel like maintaining that channel is necessary?
So for me,
Mhm.
whenever I raise energy like that, I'm only doing it for a specific purpose.
Mhm.
So I never have attempted to keep that connection open.
Mhm.
So if I'm raising energy, it's for a ritual, it's for an experience that I'm trying to get. Once I'm done, once I feel like that has reached completion, then I release the energy.
Mhm.
I've never attempted to keep that channel connection open for longer than whatever my purpose is.
Hmm. Okay.
What about you?
Interesting. I feel like the majority of the time that is the case for me. I'm doing the work and then I am, closing that channel, moving on with it. But there have been times that I know, not only with drawing down, but honestly, sometimes with trans work that I've done, that I've been in what I felt like it was a very vulnerable place. And I'm like, I need additional support, like I need to know that somebody,
Preface 2020.
I need to know that somebody else is there,
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, anytime you are keeping that channel open, it is a two-way street, so how long are you able to maintain and sustain that energy? Because you can't expect spirit or deity to just constantly feed into you without you doing any of the work or reciprocating back.
Yes.
That's what I feel.
Yeah.
Like you can't just be like, I need you to be here to support me. I feel vulnerable. I feel alone. I need help right now. And then just go about your merry way and do the same things that you've been doing.
Yeah.
You
have to feed that. You have to feed that connection. And it requires energy to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of the last thing I wanted to talk about was a really interesting concept that I guess I've thought about before, but never to this level of depth. So Matt Oren released Psychic Witch. Do you have your copy? Hold on, wait. Me too. And in like going through this work and really dissecting these things and trying to think more in depth of what all of this means in our practice, there is a portion of this book that he talks about self-possession.
Yes.
Yes. So self-possession, I've got a couple notes. Building a relationship and harnessing the energy of one's primal self, shadow self, higher self, or basically like other aspects of your soul. And doing the trance work, the petition work, taking the time to open that channel between different levels of self to achieve certain types of work. For example, an example that he gives is if he's trying to work with his inner child, connect to his inner child again, reaching into that primal self, that lower self, if you will, and fostering that connection to better open those lines of communication, which I think is such a just beautiful concept.
I agree. It's so fascinating, and it's not something that I've ever thought about before.
Yeah. And I think that to some degree, like we, obviously you do shadow work,
That's what I was going to say. Like connecting to my shadow self is something that I've obviously been working on for a long time, but I've never thought about like the other aspects of myself and connecting with the other aspects of myself. So I
the
thought,
higher self, yeah.
Right, like higher self, like who is she? What does she look like?
Who is she?
Who is she?
No, but I mean, I think it's such a, like we don't always have to go to deity or spirit to grow.
Right.
Sometimes the things that we need are already within oneself.
What I was going to say, it was inside you all along.
But I highly recommend y'all check out this book because there's so many concepts and so much amazingness in it. But that concept and that kind of layer of when it comes to involving divine, we can't forget that we are divine.
Right, because we're sovereign.
Yes.
Yes.
So sometimes that is not necessarily calling out and asking external forces for help. Sometimes that may be calling upon higher self and being like, I know that I have the knowledge. I know that I have the power. I don't feel it right now. I need you to help me out. Please guide me and give me the strength that I already know that I have.
Right.
Help me witness myself.
which I think is a beautiful fucking concept when you think, yeah.
Mm. Mm.
I'm crying. Are you
Stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, so I mean, that's just amazing rabbit hole, I think, to go down, is
Absolutely.
understanding I mean, there's so many things that are kind of, I don't want to say natural, but a lot of spellcraft and witchcraft has been built around for so long
Yes.
that, like, when it comes to like invoking, aspecting, things like that, it's like,
It's
we
instinctual.
know how to do them, but are we thinking about the deeper connotations and levels to
Right.
what are we actually doing when we do these?
Are we thinking about what our desired outcome is whenever we're putting this together?
Yeah.
Like, critically, are we thinking about it, or are we just going on autopilot and just doing what we've heard, or
Have learned to do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I have.
That's it. That's the episode.
So after all of that, are there any other things that you may have thought of in your practice that, I know you said that invoking is something that you've done for sure. Yeah. Are there any other parts of this that you feel like are things that you may have done in your practice before but didn't perceive them through that lens? Yeah.
Invoking is something I've definitely done. Evoking I've done on accident as a baby with. I don't even know who I evoked. That's a whole rabbit hole that we can talk about.
I'm not gonna lie, when starting out, I've done, spells that I've read out of a book and been like, I'm calling upon you, this person, this person, this person. I'm like, who was that? Okay, let's roll with it. I think.
Exactly. And I had fallout from that shit as a baby witch. 100% had fallout.
Yeah.
You know why I had fallout? Because I didn't fucking release the energy.
Eh.
And I just let it linger.
Ugh.
What did I evoke? Dunno. But that shit was there for a long ass time. Yeah. I've aspected slightly. I've dipped my toe into aspecting. That's something that I want to explore further. One really cool thing that I have, so I've talked about, obviously, that my deity is the Morgan. Courtney Weber came out with a book earlier this year, or end of last year, I think, end of last year. And she had a lot of really cool rituals as part of her book. I really like the style that she writes in. I know that she did a book on Bridget, and I think she's coming out with a book on Hecate. But it's really interesting that her writing style, because she includes like historical information about the deity that she's writing about. She includes personal stories from followers of that deity, of working with that deity. And then she includes her personal experiences. And then she includes rituals that she's done. And she had some really cool rituals that that was interested in trying, and I just haven't gotten around to doing it yet. But after this discussion, I realized that a lot of those rituals are involving invoking and aspecting. So I'm really even more excited now to try them than what I was before. I'm trying to think. I think I think it's a bigger part of my practice than what I realized when we first started having this discussion, but aspecting is something I definitely want to dive into more. And then obviously, like we, ended on, really diving more into connecting with all levels of myself and maybe meeting that higher version of myself that I'm not super familiar with. Feels like my shadow self has been all encompassing.
Chummy. Y'all are chummy.
Real chummy. But yeah, no, I would be super interested into learning all other versions of myself that are out there. Yeah.
Or in there.
Who is she?
Alrighty, y'all. Well, I think that's about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This episode was super exciting for me. I loved this. This was a nice coffee talk.
Good coffee talk.
Good coffee talk.
Wait, let's do it better. Ready? Go. Wait.
Clean.
We'll get better at that, I promise.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we won't have to.
I know, right? In the meantime, like and subscribe.
And don't forget to hit that little bell
For notifications. Ding, ding.
we post a new video. Don't forget, please leave comments down below. What do you have experience with? What do you enjoy implementing in your everyday practice? And
should you be afraid of evoking?
should you be afraid of evoking, yes or no?
Help!
But thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you in our next episode.
Bye! Oh, I forgot. Skull!
Skull!
Bye!
Bye!